In our last video, we installed Gemma 4 onto this 16 gig Mac Mini. And in this video, I want to take things a step further and I want to install Hermes Agent and plug it into the Gemma 4 model so that we can build our first AI assistant. Okay, so let's start by opening up our favorite coding tool. And I'm going to be using Claude Code in the Claude desktop app. I'll set myself to Opus 4.8 and I'll just go to Ultra Code, and you can just use this as a benchmark for what's possible. But we'll be using Claude Code to do everything for us. We'll be using it to help change the settings on our Mac. We'll then be using it to install Hermes Agent, to plug it into our Gemma model. We'll also be using it to build out any dashboards or workflows. The better the model that you have, the better the output you can get. You just want like a really smart person setting all this stuff up for you. So one of the reasons why we're able to manage everything on a computer is because all these coding tools run in the terminal, and if they run in the terminal, they have access to your device. They can read your device and tell you what RAM you have available. They can change the settings for you. And a lot of these tools and apps that you download, like as we know with Hermes Agent, they have a install line here. So our Claude can actually just go to the website, find this install line, and then automatically run that in a terminal, and then help us set up everything without us actually having to go through the very tedious and sometimes confusing process of setting up a Hermes Agent. So once it installs this, a lot of these tools also have a CLI, and a CLI is just a way that you can run, use, change settings of, for example, Hermes directly in the terminal. So for example, let me just go to the LM Studio CLI. We have list your models, that's the command, and to run that, we just need to do LMS space LS. So I've got, it's already open. I'm just going to go LMS space LS. And I'm going to hit enter, and then we see all the different models that I've got available on my LM Studio. And I'm actually using LM Link, which means that across all my different devices, I can share the local models that I have. That's why you see like 20 models on here. As you can see, we can just operate under the hood. We can operate LM Studio, we can operate Hermes Agent, and we can do that directly from Claude Code or Codex or OpenCode, whatever's got access to your terminal. So let's just start by running through a very basic command. Hey, can you let me know what hardware I'm running on this device? So we're just checking the Mac's hardware details, and as you can see, it's just executing a command that runs in the terminal. Here we have a Mac Mini with M4 chip. We have 16 gigs of RAM. The display that we have is 1920 by 1080, so it can read everything that we have on our device. So the second thing you want to do before we even start installing any of these Hermes Agent is, hey, can you confirm if this Mac ever turns off or if it's set to always be on? And one of the reasons why you want to have this device to always be on is if your Mac Mini goes to sleep, your Hermes Agent goes to sleep. So if it's sleeping at 3 a.m. and you have like a really important email that you wanted your agent to get, it's not going to get it until it wakes up. So you want to have your Mac always on. So in this case, I think this Mac is set to always be on. You can also do things like if your power ever goes out and it reboots, you want to have like a reboot script or like an option to like reboot the Mac Mini, turn on LM Studio, turn on Hermes Agent, turn on Tailscale. So I just realized that I didn't even have the Ultra Code turned on, but I'll just turn it on now and we'll start setting up our Hermes Agent. Can you please download and install Hermes Agent? I just want a very basic setup for now. I just want to get it up and running. I don't want to plug it into Telegram just yet or WhatsApp or anything else. Just install it and then give me the URL so I can open up my dashboard. And also, I don't want to plug in any external services. Like I don't want to use any paid APIs for doing web search or anything like that. Hey, if you're watching this video and you're enjoying it, you're getting something out of it, I'd appreciate if you could either like the video, drop a comment, or if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. That'll help me grow. That'll help this video reach more people and help more people build local AI agents. Thank you. So while Claude is installing our Hermes Agent, let's go across to LM Studio and load up our model. So in our last video, we downloaded the Gemma 412B, which is 7.04 gigs. In that time, there's been another version released, which is the QAT, Quantized Aware Training. This is just a little bit smaller at 6.66 gigs. I haven't done too much reading into this, but it's meant to, at a high level, it's meant to like try and retain as much smartness as possible as the full-size model at the smallest possible footprint. As is the case with local models, you always want to be testing different models for different use cases. And in this case, you might want to test between the regular 12B and the QAT 12B. And 6 days ago on Reddit, this person said that the 12B QAT was actually a regression for the use case. So it's kind of contradicting that it's meant to be as smart as possible versus the regular 12B model. But in this case, it didn't work for their use case. So it's all about use case. It's all about testing. So definitely see if it works for you. I guess for us, we're just trying to use this small model for this demo. And as you know, from the very first time we did this, if we go max context length, we see an error saying you're not able to actually load up this model. And if we get roughly down to like 12 gigs, just a little bit lower. Probably around here is the sweet spot, and we only have like 34,000 tokens. Now, it's important to note that since we're running Hermes Agent, we cannot run it at like 30,000 tokens. It's not enough for us to have a conversation or complete any tasks at all, actually. But we don't want to go up too high because we've only got 16 gigs. So at 12 gig, we've only got 4 gigs left for the operating system, and for Hermes Agent to be able to check our emails, complete tasks, go into different tools. I don't really like using paid services as much as possible. I want to use local services. So I think you can download file crawl and run it locally within a Docker container on your computer. If you do that, that's going to use like a gig of RAM, for example. So as you try and start introducing different, like make your Hermes Agent do different things on your device, actually take care of more tasks for you, you have to play this like really fine game between how much RAM you're using for the model and context versus how much RAM you're making available for these different actions. But one thing I've been trying out recently is using like Chromium or using the browser mode where the agent within the terminal will be able to go to different web pages, search different URLs, extract the content, and this is going to be totally free and private as well. So just be mindful of the more that you want your Hermes Agent to do for you. You have everything is like it's a very fine game on the Mac Mini, to be honest. But what we can do is at the very bottom of these settings, we've got this flash attention setting over here, where if we engage both of these, we can just try and drop down to Q8, which technically is a bit of accuracy loss. So again, just try and test this for your use case, but this is a very easy way for us to try and get a bit more context, which should make this model a bit more usable within Hermes Agent. As you can see now, I'm sliding up. Let's get to roughly around 12 gigs, just around here. Okay, maybe a little bit too high. 12.16, we have roughly 67,000 token context windows. So let's see if we can actually load this up into our Mac Mini. This is going to give us a bit more runway for us to actually have a conversation with our Hermes Agent. And let's just give this model a quick test. Let's have a new conversation and let's choose our loaded model. Hi there. Yeah, just a little bit of thinking, and then here's our response. Beautiful. 12.66 tokens. Nice. And back in Claude, looks like we've set everything up. Let me just scroll up a little bit, check what's happened here. Okay, so no Telegram, no API keys, and we also haven't downloaded our browser or Chromium, so we can do the agent browser mode, which we were just speaking about. We can get to this in just a second. Hey, I've just loaded up a Gemma model into my LM Studio. Can you please make that the default model for our Hermes Agent? Nice, looks like it's picking up that we have LM Studio as a provider available in Hermes Agent, and we're using 1207.001.1234. Let me just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, perfect. And we have this as running as well. So now we can actually serve that model directly into our Hermes Agent. And this is another cool thing that I want to speak about. So right now, Claude has set up Gemma inside Hermes Agent, and Claude is running a prompt into Hermes to make sure that Gemma actually responds, basically doing an integration test for us. And this is possible because if we look at the Hermes Agent CLI, you can just send a prompt, Hermes chat, and then you put your actual question or statement, whatever it is, into Hermes and you get a response back. So we would not get a response back if our Gemma model wasn't properly configured, if it wasn't loaded, if LM Studio wasn't installed. And then Claude can actually go back and change the settings until it works. So in this case, Gemma is now your default. It was successfully set up. Let's open up this localhost URL. So reply exactly with this sentence. So this is the test conversation that looks like Claude just had. And now if we go across to chat and let's see here, let's send our message. Hi there. And we've sent it across to Gemma. So let's see here, and we're processing that prompt. So beautiful, everything's connected up from our LM Studio. Let's come back into here and see when we get a response. So it looks like we're still trying to process that response, just over 2 minutes in, and our LM Studio is just finishing processing the prompt. Now we're generating the response, and there we go, we have our response. So that took roughly 2.5 to 3 minutes to actually process. And we can see over here 16.6 thousand out of our total 67,000 tokens used. So it's actually not as big as I thought it was. I think Claude Code is like 30,000 tokens, which is better for us. It just gives us some more runway. But the issue is, since we're using a very small device and the actual hardware on this is an M4, it is going to be a little bit slower with these responses. So in terms of an instant agent, we might not get that. But in terms of like a 24/7 employee or assistant, we definitely can get that. Now, the final thing that I want to take us through is I want to plug in our Hermes Agent into an existing tool that I use. We were just speaking about customer support, so I want to figure out how I can get Hermes Agent to respond to customer support tickets. So I use Zendesk for customer support, and I just want to go across to my admin center, and I want to generate an API key and give it to Claude. Pretty much any tool that you use, if you use HubSpot, if you use Salesforce, if you use Shopify, whatever tool that you're using for your business, you can definitely get an API key or API token, and you'll be able to give it to Claude, and Claude will be able to like set up webhooks, set up the connection between both these systems. So let me just generate a new API key, demo 3. We'll save this, we'll copy the API key, and back in Claude, hey, I'm gonna give you my Zendesk API key, and I want you to create a webhook that triggers every time there is a new customer support ticket that's received into that inbox. And I want you to send it across to Hermes Agent to be able to respond to that ticket. For now, just use a generic data set. Just assume that we are a computer parts replacement company. Make up an FAQ. This is just for a test case. And let's paste in the API key here. Claude's always going to come back to us and say, hey, you've just exposed your API key in this conversation. You want to cycle that key, you want to delete that key, which you definitely want to do. So after you finish your conversation, definitely go back into your tool and just delete your API key. So we want to create a webhook from Zendesk, which basically takes any new incoming email or a new incoming ticket that we receive and send it across to our Hermes agent. And then from Hermes agent, using the CLI, as you know, we're able to receive different events from different places. And I mean, instead of me trying to figure it out, like how do I kickstart a session with Hermes agent? How do I upload the skills? How do I give it the FAQs or whatever? Claude's able to read all that information, do its own due diligence, its own thinking, and hopefully also do its own testing just to make sure that process works end to end. Awesome. So looks like Claude has finished setting everything up for us. Let's just go across to Zendesk, and we can see in the webhook section, we didn't set up any webhook for ourselves, but we have the Hermes Agent auto reply webhook. Just to summarize the chat, I had to answer a couple different questions, basically around preferences, if I wanted it to be an internal note or a public reply directly back to a ticket. Since this is my demo Zendesk account, I was just like, yeah, let's make it a fake FAQ sheet and then public replies just to like demo this. Let's also fire off a real ticket. So I'm going to send this across to my Zendesk inbox. And back in Zendesk, we can see a couple of new tickets. So 2 minutes ago, this is replacement PSU is dead. This would have been generated by Claude to test out that Hermes agent works. So I think we just get a response in a couple of minutes. And then we had our ticket, which is hi, what are the open hours? It looks like LM Studio is currently trying to process 2 different tickets. And if we open up the activity monitor, it looks like out of the 16 gigs, we're using 15.08. So it's quite a lot. And if I just put my hand on top of the Mac Mini, I can see it's pretty warm on the top as well. So it's definitely working. And it looks like we're getting the responses generated now. This is actually pretty quick. I mean, this is 2 different threads, and you can see the tokens per second were pretty fast. And here's a response to our open hours question. Hi Bart, thanks for reaching out. We're open Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thank you, Bitforge Components customer support team. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching this video. If there is one takeaway that you have after leaving, I hope it is that you start using Claude Code to manage your devices. From changing the settings on your Mac Mini, to installing Tailscale, to installing your Hermes agent and plugging into different tools and building out these workflows for you. So it's extremely powerful and it's a massive time saver. It is very reassuring to have Claude Code just do that process for you. And if you watch to the very end of this video, please like, drop a comment, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.